The night shift always had a kind of silence that felt different. It wasn't the peaceful kind, but the kind that loomed before chaos, like the quiet hum in the air before a storm rolls in. Nurse Clara Simmons knew it well. She had walked those sterile hospital halls of St. Jude Medical Center for 7 years. She'd seen more broken bodies and broken spirits than most people did in a lifetime. That night was cold. Rain tapped against the windows in sharp, icy rhythms. The air had finally calmed after a wave of trauma cases when an ambulance rolled in with a shivering, unconscious man. The paramedics muttered that they found him in an alley, soaked to the bone. Breathing shallow, his name was unknown, his clothes soaked, and his fingers blue. No ID, no insurance. Clara moved instinctively. She helped lift him to the stretcher and noticed the wheeze in his chest. Pneumonia advanced. His wrist was also swollen, likely fractured. One of the attending doctors gave a glance and muttered, "Stabilize him. Antibiotics. Cast. If he makes it through the night, we discharge. We've got no room to babysit charity cases." Clara bit her tongue. The man was barely breathing. She did more than stabilize him. She stayed by his side. When he coughed in his sleep, she was there with tissues. When his fever spiked, she wiped his brow. And when he finally opened his eyes in the early hours of the morning, he whispered hoarsely, "You an angel." She smiled. "Not even close. What's your name?" He struggled to answer. "Samuel." "Nice to meet you, Samuel," she said gently. "You're safe now, after 24 hours. Hospital policy meant Samuel had to be discharged. He still coughed constantly, and his fever hadn't broken fully. But Clara watched helplessly as he was given a packet of generic antibiotics, a few cough drops, and led out the door. She found him again that night under the concrete stairwell behind the air. Cold under an emergency blanket, his breath fogging. In the air. "I thought you left," she said. "Nowhere to go," he replied, looking away in shame. The next night, she brought a sandwich and a thermos of hot soup. The night after, bandages, then socks, then a fresh blanket. Every night, Clara gave Samuel something. Not just food, but time, attention, respect, and he gave her stories. He had once been a jazz pianist, played in clubs across New Orleans. He had a brother, but they'd fallen out years ago after a fight. Then came the addiction. Then came the streets, you know. He said one night, "You're the first person who's looked me in the eye in years," Clara said softly. "You deserve to be seen." What neither of them realized was that someone else had seen too. A junior administrator had reviewed security footage and filed a report. The footage showed Clara handing food and sitting beside a non-patient on hospital property. Repeatedly. She was called into human resources on a cold Thursday morning. Clara thought it was a scheduling mix-up, but when she stepped into the room and saw two HR officers and her supervisor seated grimly, she knew something was wrong. "Clara," the HR manager said, "we've received evidence of repeated unauthorized interactions with a non-patient individual, including distribution of hospital supplies and trespassing onto non-staff-approved zones." "You mean Samuel?" Clara asked. "You've been warned in the past, Clara. We sympathize with your intentions, but you've put the hospital at risk of liability. Feeding and treating a homeless man on hospital property without clearance. This is a serious violation. I use my own money. My time, still a violation, effective immediately. You are terminated." The words hit like a punch to the gut. 7 years of work gone. Clara packed her things in silence. She passed by colleagues who looked away, confused and ashamed. She didn't want their pity. She walked outside. The stairwell was empty. Samuel was gone. The apartment felt like a cell. She stared at the eviction notice on her kitchen table. She hadn't saved much. Too many student loans. Too many nights ordering cheap takeout after shifts. The silence was unbearable. She wondered if kindness was truly a weakness. If maybe her mother had been right. The world eats soft people. Alive. 3 days passed, and then everything changed. St. Jude Medical Center was buzzing with rumors. Edward Langston, the CEO of the entire hospital network, not just the local director, had arrived. The Edward Langston, the man who hadn't visited a hospital in years. He came in a black town car, trailed by assistants and security. Doctors adjusted their ties. Admins whispered behind closed doors. Edward didn't pause for any of them. He walked straight to the "Where is Nurse Clara Simmons?" he asked. Heads turned. "She was terminated, sir," and Nurse replied nervously. "2 days ago." Edward's face darkened. Who authorized that? The HR director approached with a rehearsed response. "She was violating multiple policies, sir, providing unauthorized assistance to a non-patient. It was necessary to avoid liability. Liability." Edward said, voice low. "She cared for a human being. Rehire her. Immediately." An hour later, Clara's phone rang. "This is Joan from HR. Clara, please. We need you to come in. Mr. Langston is here. He asked for you." Clara almost hung up, but something inside her shifted. Not anger, not hope, just curiosity. She walked into the hospital again for the first time since being fired, and there he was, standing alone in a boardroom, tall, suit pressed, eyes weary. "Miss Simmons," he said, standing. "Thank you for coming." She said nothing. "I owe you an explanation," he continued. 3 days ago, a man came to my home, shivering, tired, cleaned up, but still fragile. His name is Samuel." Clara's breath caught in her chest. "My brother. He disappeared nearly a decade ago after a breakdown. I spent years searching. We thought he might be dead," she said slowly. "He told me someone found him, fed him, cared for him, treated him with dignity. He said a nurse saved his life." Edward's voice cracked slightly. "He said your name," Clara said softly. "I just did what anyone should." "No, Clara, you did what most wouldn't." Edward pulled out a folder. Inside were blueprints. "I don't just want you back. I want you to lead something new. We're launching a mobile outreach unit, Hope Heaven. Medical vans that serve the homeless directly. Your leadership, your team, full support. I'm just a nurse. No, you're the best of us." Word of Clara's firing and her reinstatement had hit social media. Thousands rallied online. A petition to bring her back had gathered 25,000 signatures. Outside the hospital, staff and former patients held signs. "Compassion is not a crime, and Clara saved lives." News stations aired the story. The nation watched as one nurse's kindness sparked a movement. Clara launched the first Hope Heaven. Within 2 months, it served the city's shelters, alleyways, and underpasses. And Samuel, he wore a new jacket, shaved his beard, and stood with a clipboard outside the van, helping people sign in. Clara smiled. "You ready to help others?" Samuel nodded. "Let's give people the same hope you gave me." Just when things seemed smooth again, Samuel relapsed. Clara found him curled in the back of an alley with a bottle in his hand. Her heart sank. "I'm scared," he said. "What if I mess this up forever?" "You're allowed to fall," she said, hugging him. "What matters is that you rise again." He entered rehab once more, and this time he came out stronger. One afternoon, Clara received a letter in delicate handwriting. It was from Eleanor Langston, Samuel's mother. When My son left. It broke me. But knowing he had someone like you when we couldn't reach him, it heals something in me. Thank you, Clara. Inside was a donation and a photograph of Samuel and Edward as boys. Clara held the letter close to her chest and cried. Months later, she was invited to speak at a National Medical Ethics Summit. A skeptical panelist asked, "Would you break rules? Again if it meant saving a homeless man?" Clara smiled. Yes. Gasps echoed across the room. Because policies are made by people, and people should never come second to rules. The crowd stood and applauded. Years passed. The Hope Heaven program expanded to 30 cities. Samuel became a certified addiction counselor. Clara trained hundreds of new nurses. On the 5th anniversary of the Hope Heaven, the hospital unveiled a plaque in honor of Clara Simmons, whose kindness healed more than bodies. Samuel stood beside her and whispered, "You helped me find myself again." She replied, "We helped each other. Sometimes all it takes is one person to see you, to truly see you." For everything to change, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness starts a revolution.